All In Sports Network. We love sports.
All right, everybody, welcome back to All In Mizzou, where we are talking Mizzou every day with Rogue Media. My name is Davis Wilson. Today is Thursday, which means it's preview day. And we got a fun preview to do. Missouri hitting the road for the first time this season. Heading to Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, to take on the 3-3 Auburn Tigers. This is a big game. I think you find out a lot about the kind of team that Missouri is in this game. If you believe Missouri is a playoff team, then this becomes a must-win game. You can't lose this game and go to the playoff. At least it would diminish the percentages, the chances to nearly zero based on the schedule that Missouri has coming up. Let's talk about this game. Auburn, Missouri. Missouri obviously 5-1 after the loss to Alabama last weekend. 1-1 in the SEC with the win against South Carolina last month. And then you have Auburn, 3-3, but 0-3 in the SEC. This game kicks off at 6:45 Central Time on SEC Network. One thing to note here, this game, when it opened on, I guess it was last Sunday, Auburn opened this game as a 3.5-point favorite. And it has since moved, since the opening, to Missouri as a 1.5-point favorite, which I think is much more accurate. And I could even see that being a bit low for Missouri, depending on what Missouri team we see. In the series, these two teams have played only 5 times, which was kind of surprising to me. That the first time they played was in the 1973 Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas, home of Tavoris Jones. And who else is from El Paso? The UTEP, what's their mascot? Damn it. All right, anyway. Missouri won that game 34-17. Last time these two teams played was last year in Columbia. Missouri won this game 21-17. Missouri fans will remember this game for the Brady Cook heroics. He goes out, goes to the hospital, gets some sort of voodoo magic done on him. He comes back to the stadium from the hospital, comes into the game, and wins the game for Missouri 21-17. Jamal Roberts with I think it was the game-winning rushing touchdown in this game. The last time these two teams played at Auburn was in 2022. I was a sophomore this year, and I remember this game very well because it was totally devastating. It was a part of a stretch of games where Missouri lost by 1 score. This one they lost 17-14. And it went into overtime. There was a fumble in the end zone by Nathaniel Pete. You'll remember Columbia native Nathaniel Pete, the running back from Stanford. The thicker kicker, Harrison Mevis, missed a chip shot. I think that would have tied the game. Or maybe taking the lead heading into overtime. I'm not sure. But Missouri loses that one 17-14, and incredibly painful as a student at the time. Injuries, not much new for Missouri. Blake Craig and Sam Horn remain out. Quarterback Sam Horn hurt his leg in the first game against Central Arkansas, as did Blake Craig, tore his ACL in the first game against Central Arkansas, both out for the year. Well, actually, I don't know if Sam Horn's out for the year. I would assume, but who knows? And then questionable, you have your offensive guard, Logan Reichert, who has been hurt since the summer. On the Auburn side of things, is a little more crowded. You have 2 guys out, Horatio Fields and Darrell Robinson. Horatio Fields is out for the year. Darrell Robinson, a running back of theirs, is I'm not really sure what his injury is. He was hurt during the year. You have linebacker Bryce Dees, a true freshman, I believe, had a nice game against Georgia last week, 2 tackles. He is doubtful in this game. He had his highest snap count of the season against Georgia last week, so that's a guy they'll miss if he can't make it. And by the way, apparently these things, questionable, probable, doubtful. Probable means he'll 75% play. Doubtful means 25%. Questionable means 50%. Questionable, Auburn has a safety Champ Anthony, who broke his thumb in the Week 1 win at Baylor in Waco. He is questionable in this game. He's played the last 3 after missing 2 weeks following the Baylor game. Played in the last 3 games. He's an important player for them. And then their starting tight end, Brandon Frazier, not much of a pass-catching threat, but a nice cog in their run-blocking game. And what was his injury? I think his was undisclosed. We don't know what's wrong with him. But he's questionable. I'm going to sit. Yeah, much more comfortable sitting. All right. What else do we have here on Auburn? Oh, we got some locker room turmoil here in the Auburn Tiger locker room. I'll explain it to you. So their running back, Damari Alston, who's voted a team captain this season, he started – PFF, Pro Football Focus, says he started against Baylor Week 1 and ran for 84 yards and a touchdown. Since then, his role has significantly decreased. Team captain, no longer with the team. He's been dismissed from the team. He's taking a red shirt. And this is something you're seeing more often now, where you have guys choosing to redshirt when they're not playing. But this case was interesting because it's a team captain and a guy whose teammates loved him. Obviously, they voted him captain. Hugh Freeze came out and said he was dismissed because he failed to meet expectations and standards of the team. And man, a lot of his teammates have voiced their opinions on that quote. A couple Auburn players are. Let me adjust this. Yeah, there you go. A couple Auburn players have come out on social media to voice their support for Alston. So, who knows how big of a deal that plays. It doesn't seem like Hugh Freeze has a great grip of his locker room right now, which is never good for a coach that is on the hot seat. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Let's get into some stats to know ahead of this game between Auburn and Missouri. So total offense, Missouri is 4th in the SEC with 510.5 yards per game. Auburn is second to last, 15th in the SEC with just 331.3 yards per game gained. Scoring offense, Missouri is 3rd, averaging 41.7 points per game. Auburn 13th, averaging 24.7 points per game. Passing offense, Missouri is 9th in the SEC with 240 passing yards per game. Auburn is dead last, 16th, with 167.3 passing yards per game. And then your run offense, Missouri is number 1 in the SEC, averaging 270.5 rushing yards per game. Good God. That is probably about 30 more yards than I would have just guessed if you made me guess. That's really good. Auburn is 10th, 164.2 rushing yards per game. Total defense. Let's go to the defense side. Total defense, Missouri is 2nd in the conference, allowing just 224 yards per game. Auburn is 8th, allowing 312.3 yards per game. Scoring defense, Missouri is 4th, allowing 16.7 points per game. Auburn is 5th, allowing 17 points per game. Pass defense, Missouri is 3rd in the SEC, allowing just 151.2 pass yards per game. Auburn 13th, allowing 225.8. Lastly, we have run defense. Missouri is 1st in run defense and run offense. Run defense, they're 1st in the conference, 72.8 rush yards allowed per game so far this year. Auburn is 4th, pretty good, allowing 86.5 rush yards per game. Okay, that was a lot of stuff there. We have a couple more stats here. Auburn is tied for dead last in the country, tied for 133rd in the country in sacks allowed. They have allowed 22 sacks this year, 22. Missouri, on the other hand, the defense of Missouri is tied for 25th in the country in sacks. the defense's sacks. They're 25th in the country. They've sacked the quarterback 16 times this year. This is where there's going to be a really interesting matchup here that I think Missouri really can exploit against Auburn. A little note. I talked about this a few weeks ago when it happened, but when Oklahoma played Auburn a couple weeks ago, Oklahoma's defense had 9 sacks against Auburn. So this is really a game where I expect guys like Damon Wilson Jr. and Zion Young, guys like that to have big days on the Missouri defensive side of the ball. All right, let's get into Auburn here. Let's get us into some stuff about Auburn. Like I said, Auburn is 3-3. Why don't I do this? How's that? Oh, that's nice. All right. Auburn is 3-3, 0-3 in the SEC. They are coming into this game having lost 3 straight games. They lost 14-17 at Oklahoma, 10-16 at Texas A&M, and 10-20 versus Georgia. That is a combined 19 points they've lost their last 3 games by. So they're close. It's not like they are getting blown out in all their games. They probably should not be 0-3. Those are 3 tough teams that they had to play. You would think they'd be able to get one of them, but they didn't. They're 0-3 in the conference. And now you're looking at this Hugh Freeze situation. I already talked about what's going on in his locker room. Probably not the best sign for him, who's already kind of put himself squarely onto the hot seat. In 2023, his first year, Hugh Freeze went 6-7 for Auburn. In 2024, last year, he went 5-7. And this year, obviously, 3-3. So he is under 500 in his tenure at Auburn. I imagine that this is pretty close to a must-win for him, as much as it is for Missouri's playoff hopes. He's got to start winning games, or I don't think he's going to last much longer down there in Alabama. All right, Missouri gets to face a familiar face at quarterback here for Auburn. Jackson Arnold, a former 5-star recruit. Initially was with Oklahoma, was supposed to be their kind of quarterback of the future. He struggled last year, his first year starting at OU, and transferred to Auburn. But Missouri did see Jackson Arnold when the 2 teams, Oklahoma and Missouri, played in 2024. You'll remember that game. Tristan Newsom had the strip sack, which led to a fumble recovery touchdown for Zion Young, sealing the game late in the fourth quarter for Missouri against Oklahoma. In that game, Jackson Arnold was 15 of 24 with 74 pass yards. He did run for 45 rush yards. But and that is something that he'll do. We'll talk about that a little bit. He does have the ability to run the ball here. Especially he's shown that this year. Missouri sacked him 3 times in the meeting last year against Oklahoma. I think Auburn's O-line is not much better than that Oklahoma O-line. There just is something wrong with the offense and the way that Arnold is not getting rid of the ball. He's standing in the pocket too long. His stats in 2025 so far, he has thrown for only 983 yards. 5 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. That's the one thing he really does have going for him. He does not turn the ball over. He also has 247 rush yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. So he's a prolific runner. Definitely has the ability to hurt you, especially in the red zone with all these touchdowns he scored. In 2025, he's been sacked 21 times through 6 games. For the math people, that is over 3 sacks a game, right? I guess I can do the math for you. I'm not really quite a math man, to be honest with you. That's 3.5 sacks per game. I should have been able to get that. Golly, that's disappointing. Sorry, guys. 3.5 sacks per game is what he's averaging. He has the highest pressure to sack rate in the entire country at 31.9%. So that basically means how many of the pressures turns into sacks, and he has the highest one. And this is a combination, like I said, of some really lackluster offensive line play, but also a tendency for Arnold to hold on to the ball for too long. That has been something that has hurt him a little bit this year. All right, let's talk about Auburn's weapons, because they do have some real weapons. And if you remember the offensive stats I read off, this offense has not been impressive at all statistically. They haven't scored the ball well enough. They haven't passed the ball well at all. They're dead last in the SEC in pass offense, which is weird because when you look at what they have at the wide receiver position, it makes no sense that they should be dead last. They have Cam Coleman, who I believe is a former 5-star recruit, just a big time receiver. Let me one second. Cam Coleman played at Auburn last year, finished with 598 yards and 8 touchdowns last year for Auburn. This year so far, he's got 24 catches, 305 yards, just 2 touchdowns through 6 games. You have him, and then you have Eric Singleton Jr., a transfer from Georgia Tech, who had 2 big years at Georgia Tech. Now he's here at Auburn. They gave him a lot of money to be here. He's got 30 catches for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then you got Malcolm Simmons, another guy who was with Auburn last year. He has 12 catches for 102 yards and 0 touchdowns. That is probably one of the highest paid receiver rooms in the country, if I had to guess. It's probably one of the most talented receiver rooms in the country. It makes no sense that the production isn't happening. And I think it is on Missouri here to continue this trend of, low production for these guys. I think Missouri did a good job against Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard last week against Auburn. Ryan Williams was, I think, hurt, so he didn't play all that much, but he didn't catch the ball. He did play. No catches on one target. Jeremy Bernard had a couple catches, but nothing crazy. So they did a good job limiting the weapons there for Alabama last week. They got to continue this against Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton Jr., and Malcolm Simmons. Another weapon Auburn has on offense is their running back Jeremiah Cobb, who is 8th in the SEC in rushing yards. He's ran the ball 70 times for 453 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's a good player. Missouri's run defense, though, is the best in the conference. So this will be an interesting matchup. Indeed. Okay, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball here for a little bit. You have 2 of the best edge rushers, I think, in the conference. Obviously, I think Missouri has maybe the 2 best in the conference, or the best duo at least. This is another great duo here that Auburn has. You have Kieron Crawford, a big 6'4", 255-pound edge rusher. He's got 20 pressures so far this season, 4 sacks. On the other side, you got to deal with Keldrick Falk, a even bigger 6'6", 285-pound man. He's got 19 pressures and 2 sacks. And golly, this matchup between those 2 guys and Caden Green and Keegan Trost, Missouri's offensive tackles, is going to be a big one. Very, very big. It's going to be important to keep that pocket clean. These guys are going to wreak havoc. They just have all year, a combined 39 pressures between the 2 of them. They're accounting for most of Auburn's pressures defensively. Also, another big playmaker here for Auburn. You have Xavier Akins, a linebacker who does a little bit of everything, leading the team in tackles this year. He also has 3 sacks, 2 passes defended, and an interception. This guy's doing everything all over the field. Definitely a name to remember if you're a Missouri fan trying to keep track of, who's who on this Auburn defense. These 3 guys are the 3 guys I would recommend keeping in mind. And then your secondary for Auburn hasn't been, it's been okay. What did I say here? Passing defense, Auburn is 13th in the SEC, allowing 225.8 pass yards per game. But they do have some guys back there. I do think this is an area where Missouri can take advantage. If you can keep the pocket clean, if you can give Bo Perbula some time to throw the ball, I think there is an avenue for Missouri to have some more success in the pass game. That's just my opinion. All right, let's flip the board here. Talk about some key matchups here. Look at that. Key matchups here for Missouri if they want to win this game. These are some things I think they're going to have to focus on. First off, I talked about a little bit just now. Missouri offensive tackles, that is Caden Green at left tackle and Keegan Trost at right tackle. Those two guys versus the two Auburn big edges I just talked about, Falk and Crawford. Can Caden Green and Keegan Trost keep Falk and Crawford away from number 9? Can they keep the pocket clean? I think this is going to be a huge determining factor on just how well this Missouri offense can function. Because if you can keep the pocket clean, we know that the pass defense for Auburn isn't great. The secondary isn't fantastic. There are going to be opportunities to find guys down the field if you keep Bo out of constant pressure, which will be tough against these two guys who are both really good players. Number 2, Missouri defensive backs versus the Auburn Tiger wide receivers. Now, like I said, Auburn's big 3 of Coleman, Singleton Jr., and Simmons have been relatively quiet, quieter than a lot of people expected so far this season. It is the big question here, can Missouri's secondary keep them quiet? The numbers for Missouri's passing defense are not bad, but if you watch the games, there are times where there are breakdowns here in coverage, miscommunication in zones and whatnot. It's just been not very pretty to watch the Missouri secondary, giving up a bunch of long third downs, 4th and 8 last week. There was that big 3rd and 30 something for South Carolina a couple weeks ago. It just has been breaking down and cannot seem to get off the field when it needs to. Even when your defensive line creates a loss on a run play or a sack, the back end of this Missouri defense tends to give it up. Can you keep these guys under wraps for one more week? I assume that at some point a guy like Cam Coleman, a guy like Singleton Jr., I think at some point they have to break out and have a big game. Missouri's job is to make sure it's not this week. And a lot of that, I talk about the defensive backs, but the other big part of that is the defensive line. If they can get pressure, it's the same thing I talked about with Auburn's edges. If Auburn's edges can get pressure, the passing game is automatically, it's shrunken down a little bit for Missouri. It's the same thing here. Missouri's defensive line has to continue to help out Missouri's secondary like they've been doing all year. They have to continue that this week against Auburn. And that brings us a perfect segue right here to number 3. Missouri's defensive line versus Auburn's offensive line / quarterback, Jackson Arnold. Like I said, Arnold has the highest pressure to sack ratio in the country, rate in the country. And man, look at these guys on Missouri's defensive line. You got Damon Wilson Jr., who has the most pressures of anybody in the SEC, coming off a week where he had 2 sacks against Alabama. This guy is a beast. I saw him in the first round of a mock draft not too long ago. I mean, this guy is rising right now. His stock is rising. He's playing as well as any defensive lineman in the country, at least in the SEC. Damon Wilson is a problem. Right behind him on the other side of the defense, you got number 9, Zion Young, the former Michigan State Spartan. Last year, obviously a big touchdown return, fumble recovery against Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold to win the game. He's familiar with Jackson Arnold. I'm sure Jackson Arnold remembers him. Zion Young has 24 pressures, tied for 2nd in the SEC. So these two guys have been massive. Missouri's defensive line as a whole has 16 sacks this year. That was tied for 25th in the country. This is a massive, massive, massive opportunity to dominate this game for Missouri's defensive line. I mean, this is a chance to totally dominate. I think that this has been the thing that Auburn has struggled with the most on offense, and this is the thing that Missouri's defense has done the best on defense. So it's a matchup of strength versus a weakness. I think, Auburn's game plan probably is going to be get the ball out quickly. Don't let pressure happen. But again, they've struggled with that. Jackson Arnold holds the ball for quite a while, struggled with taking sacks. You also have to be wary that he is able to get out of the pocket and run a little bit. So another thing to watch out for is his legs, because he can do it. All right, number 4, we have Missouri's running backs versus Auburn's run defense. Auburn's run defense is the best part of that defense. Again, that defensive line for Auburn is no joke. They got some big dudes up there. Auburn has the 4th best run defense in the SEC. Is that right? I thought it was 5th. Let me flip the board. I may have had a typo here. Let me see. Run D. 4th. I'm right. 4th best run defense in the SEC. Statistically, that is better than Alabama. They're much better than Alabama statistically. But we saw last week against the Crimson Tide, Missouri's run game was not what it has been. Ahmad Hardy, only 12 carries. Jamal Roberts, only 5 carries. Bo Prabula, your quarterback, was your leading rusher. That's just not the way this Missouri team is going to win games most of the time. So can Ahmad Hardy, can Jamal Roberts bounce back? Both of them need to have big games. The offensive line has to establish some dominance up there. I think Missouri's going to come out of the gate really running the ball, just like they did against Alabama, and try to establish something early. And my thoughts on Ahmad Hardy have not changed in the slightest since his first kind of letdown game against Alabama. I don't necessarily think that was on him. He only had 12 carries, and I think he had 50-something yards too, 56 yards. So if he gets his regular carry amount, he's on track for a 100-yard game. It's just tough. I think that this is a really great opportunity to get back on track. That Missouri run offense still, I think, number 1. Sorry, I'm going to flip it again. This is pretty fun to flip it like this, isn't it? Run offense. Yep, Missouri's number 1 in the country, averaging 270.5 rush yards per game, which is pretty insane. All right, good God. That's enough. That's enough of this. Done flipping the board. All right, number 5, last matchup I'm looking at here for Missouri. Bo Prabula versus the Auburn pass defense. Bo Prabula now has thrown interceptions, I believe, in 4 straight games, and he threw 2 of them last week against Alabama. He's struggling to take care of the football. He also had a fumble that nearly was a turnover. He's just struggling a little bit right now. Didn't look as sharp as throwing the ball. Was pretty good running the ball, but still he's not throwing the ball as well as he can. Remember, Auburn's pass defense is 13th in the SEC. They're tied for 114th in interceptions. They only have 2 picks all year. This is an opportunity for Bo Prabula against an Auburn secondary that doesn't create turnovers. This is an opportunity for him to bounce back, keep the stat sheet clean of any interceptions or turnovers, and maybe throw it around a little bit. Again, that secondary is an area that Missouri might have an advantage with guys like Kevin Coleman, Marquise Johnson. Donovan Olubade, play the guy a little bit more this week, I say. Josh Manning, these guys, Brett Norfleet, these guys should be able to win their matchups against this secondary. Can Bo Prabula deliver? We'll find out. Let's see. All right, last thing I got some picks for you guys. I realized I didn't do picks last week. And I am by no means am I telling you to listen to anything I have to say, because the one week I did it, I went 1-3, and I'm not a professional gambler. I'm not a pick giver, but it's fun, and I like to do it. I'll probably take some of these just to put my money where my mouth is a little bit. My first pick in the SEC, I got 4 SEC picks. I got an upset pick that I'm, if you want to get kind of crazy, I would say maybe this one. All right, here's my pick, though. Oklahoma -5.5 at South Carolina. I think Oklahoma bounces back here. South Carolina has not looked good at all. Oklahoma really struggled offensively against Texas last week. I think that this is a great chance for John Mateer to get a little bit healthier, get a little more of his confidence back. I think they win, and I think they cover the 5.5-point spread. So there you go. Number 2, I have Mississippi State +9.5 at Florida. Florida's starting to play a little bit better recently, but I do think Mississippi State is due for one of these big SEC wins. They've been close. They lost in overtime to Mississippi State. They've been hanging around. I think a win at the Swamp is regardless of how good your program, that Florida program is that you're playing, a win at the Swamp is always a big deal, no matter what. It just is. So I think that this is an opportunity for State to get on the board here. This new era with Jeff Lebby, a signature win would be big. I don't know if they necessarily win this one, but I do think they can keep it close at the Swamp against Florida. I'm taking plus 9.5 Mississippi State. Number 3, I've got Alabama, Missouri's old friend Alabama, coming off a nice win over the Tigers. They're playing Tennessee, a huge rivalry game. Tennessee didn't really look that good last week. The defense is no good. Almost lost to Arkansas, who I'll talk about in a second. But Alabama, 7.5-point favorite at home. I think they might win by 2 scores, so I'm taking Alabama in this spot, minus 7.5. And then I'll throw in Missouri here, Mizzou Auburn. I like Missouri minus 1.5. I think that feels a little low to me, although I do think Auburn really is a team that is close to a win. I don't love what's going on in the locker room. Sometimes that messes with the on-field production. So maybe there's some stuff going on behind the scenes at Auburn that's going to hurt them. But I do think Missouri's good enough. I think Missouri's a better team. You saw statistics. They're much, much better in pretty much every category. I think Missouri, this is a bounce-back win. This is an opportunity to show the rest of the country that, hey, not only can we almost beat Alabama, we can go on the road and beat a pretty good Auburn team. So there you go. All right, an upset pick, a money line upset pick. I probably won't take this unless some of these other things go well. But this is interesting to me. Texas A&M is going to Fayetteville this weekend, and I think this Bobby Petrino thing, I think there's a non-zero chance that they just make him the head coach. That this team looked good against Tennessee last week. The offense is there. The defense just needs to be fractionally decent. I think Arkansas's offense versus Texas A&M's defense is going to be pretty fascinating. And if I really don't, I mean, it's tough, but I think there's an avenue where this game is close. And I think there's an avenue that Arkansas gets the win. I still don't think Arkansas is good. Do not get me wrong. I actually think they're really bad. But anytime you get a head coach, there's a new head coach bump of morale. There's, let's go get a win. I think fans are going to be riled up for Bobby Petrino. I believe, is this their first home game since then? Was that Arkansas-Tennessee game in Knoxville, or where was that? That was – come on, just tell me. That was in Neyland. So I think this is Bobby P's first game back in Fayetteville. Is that right? I think that's right. So I think fans are going to be fired up. I think this is an opportunity for Arkansas to just get a win and feel decent about themselves. Again, don't think Arkansas is a good team, but A&M's been been in a lot of battles recently. I think maybe this is kind of a look-ahead game. So I don't feel good about it at all, but I do think there's an opportunity here for Arkansas to upset number 4 in the country, Texas A&M. You heard it here first. That is plus 250 odds. All right, the big reveal. Last thing I have, Missouri versus Auburn. I already told you I'm picking the spread for Missouri. If I'm, I may not gamble. You're not supposed to gamble as a journalist, but I'm not covering the team anymore, so I can do what I want. I'm picking Missouri to win 27-21 at Auburn. That's my pick. Hell yeah. All right, that's all I have, though. Hope you enjoyed this preview episode of Auburn versus Missouri. Number 16, Missouri hitting the road, looking to avoid back-to-back losses. By the way, the last time Missouri lost 2 games in a row, guess when that was? I'm waiting. Go ahead and guess. It was in 2022, this stretch I talked about. They lost to Auburn by 3 on the road in overtime. Then they lost by 4 to Georgia. Then they lost by 3 to Florida. So they lost 3 in a row in 2022. Since then, they haven't lost 2 games in a row. Drinkwitz knows how to respond. I think they respond here, get a win, 27-21 at Jordan-Hare Stadium. All right, that's all I have. Thanks for coming on and joining me for this preview episode. Tomorrow, we'll do temperature check. I think Adam, our friend Adam, might be coming on, so be on the lookout for that. That'll be fun. 6:45 Saturday night. I'll be watching Missouri Auburn. Have a great Thursday, everybody. Have a great Friday if you don't come back here, although you should come back here tomorrow. And if I don't see you then, have a good weekend. Friday, though, temperature check. I'll see you then, or I'll see you on another time.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.